Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, we're going to do some more work with arithmetic involving negative numbers. But since I got my Steve Biko t-shirt on, as you can see, right? This is my Steve Biko t-shirt. Let me say a couple things about Steve Biko before we jump into this example problem right here. Steve Biko is an ancestor. Steve Biko was a revolutionary freedom fighter from the country of South Africa, or also known as Azania, before it was colonized, all right, by the Europeans. Steve Biko was an anti-apartheid struggler and an anti-colonial struggler, all right? He has a collection of writings in a book called I Write What I Like. There also have been several books written about Steve Biko's life and about the work Steve Biko was doing in terms of organizing and in terms of fighting against apartheid and struggling against apartheid. And one of his most famous quotes is actually on this t-shirt right here. And I'm gonna read it. And I want you to think about it and see if it resonates with you, all right? This quote says, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the minds of the oppressed." So just think about that. Think about that for a minute, all right? Now, let's jump into this math. So the problem that we have behind us is 0 plus negative 27. 0 plus negative 27. Now I'm gonna give you a little cheat code, right? When you see a problem like that or an expression like that, where there's a plus sign and then there's a negative number followed by a plus sign, usually inside parentheses, you can rewrite that problem in a more simpler format. You can rewrite it and just make it look like this. This plus and minus sign can combine to just be a plain minus sign, right? Because adding a negative is the same thing as just doing regular subtraction, right? That's what adding a negative is. Adding a negative is just doing subtraction. So we got 0 minus 27. So imagine you have nothing and then you borrow $27. Because when you think of subtraction, you could think of that as borrowing, right? Because you're in the hole. Right? You have a debt now. So 0 take away 27, you know you're gonna owe $27, right? If you borrow $27, you already had nothing and you borrow $27 or you subtract $27. Or if your bank account has a balance of 0 and then your bank hits you with a fee for some reason, whether it's an overdraft fee, an NSF fee, non-sufficient funds, whatever, you order some checks or something and forgot about them, you get a fee of $27. Now your balance is gonna be negative $27. So that means that 0 minus 27 is negative 27, all right? That's one way to think about that, all right? But I also want you to think about it another way in terms of using the number line, all right? So we got the number line right here, all right? Remember, in a addition or subtraction statement, if we're using a number line, the first number indicates where we start at on the number line, right? The second number tells us how far we should move, all right? How many spaces on the number line we should move. The sign in between tells us whether we should move to the right or whether we should move to the left. So here, we got a 0. So we start at 0. Boom, right here. Start at 0. Then there's a minus sign. And you see why I wanted to switch it? I flipped it for you because if you got a plus sign and a minus sign, it could get confusing because you don't know, should I move to the right or should I move to the left? What should I do? But adding a negative is the same thing as just doing subtraction, all right? So that way, now we know that we're doing subtraction. So when we're doing subtraction, we're just moving to the left. That's all we're doing. We're just moving to the left. So we start at 0, we move to the left 27 spaces, right? And then we stop. But notice something, right? Look at how I set up my number line. This is another key point that you should think about, right? When you set up your number line, you don't have to always count by ones. You don't got to do that. You don't got to always count by ones. You can count by any denomination that you want. You can count by 2s, 3s, 5s, 10s, 15s, hundreds, thousands. You can count by anything you want, whatever is most appropriate. Now, I didn't want to count by ones on this number line. I'm going to tell you why. I didn't want to count by ones because if I count by ones, I'm going to have to do a whole lot of spaces. I'm going to have to do at least 27 spaces. I didn't want to do all that. I decided to count by 3s. I didn't even have to do that. I could have counted by 6s. I wouldn't have did by 6s because 6 is not a factor of 27. I want to use a factor of 27. I counted by 3s. I went by 3s because I know 3 goes into 27 since 3 times 9 is 27, right? I could have went by 9s, right? But I wanted to kind of like have it spread out a little bit, you know what I mean? So I counted by threes. So that means that this is 0, this is -3, this is -6, this is -9, this is -12, this is -15, which I have labeled. And then I keep going. This is -18, this is -21, this is -24, and this is -27. Which is our answer. And that's another way to get the answer using the number line. All right? So just as a recap, the major takeaway, in addition to knowing about this brother right here, Steve Biko, that's a major takeaway for real. But in addition to that, when you see an addition adding a negative plus a negative, when you see that, you could flip that into just a straight subtraction problem. Just flip it into a straight subtraction problem. So now you're just looking at, oh, it's really just saying 0 minus 27. That's really what it's saying. So if I start at 0 and I take away 27, think about it in terms of the number line. I start at 0 and I go 27 spaces to the left and I stop at -27. That's really all it is. So that's the major takeaway. Plus a negative is the same thing as subtraction. Plus a negative is the same thing as subtraction. And that's about it. All right? Until the next video, go get some practice. Peace.